We need your car.
By the light of the moon, 3 bodies rise to the surface of the Connecticut River in western Massachusetts. Meanwhile, at Boston's South Station, police detective Thomas Craven picks up his daughter Emma Craven, a 24-year-old MIT graduate, who has come home for a visit. As she gets into his car, she vomits. Thomas and Emma arrive at home. At home, Thomas prepares dinner. Emma suddenly suffers a nosebleed and begins vomiting violently. In a panic, they rush to find a hospital, but before they can leave, a masked gunman shouts Craven's name and fires 2 shotgun blasts at Emma. She's thrown through the door and dies in her father's arms. The attacker escapes. While alone at home, Emma's mobile phone rings. Thomas picks up the call, but no one answered. Emma's cause of death: injuries arising from gunshot wounds, massive hemorrhage, and heart seizure due to shock. Thomas asks for a scissor and cuts some of Emma's hair as memento. Thomas scattered the ashes of Emma on her favorite beach. Initially, everyone assumes that Thomas, being a detective, was the intended target. However, when Thomas discovers a pistol in Emma's nightstand, he begins to suspect she was the real target. Investigating the gun's ownership, he traces it to Emma's boyfriend, David, who is terrified of Northmore, the company where Emma worked. Thomas travels to visit David. Upon entering David's house, Thomas and David have a brief fight. David admits that he gave Emma the handgun. David asked Thomas to leave, or David will be dead. David gives Thomas the key to Emma's apartment and her personal things. Thomas visits Emma's apartment and saw some pictures of Emma and David together. Thomas finds a Geiger counter. He discovers the lock of Emma's hair is radioactive. Thomas visits Jack Bennett, who is the CEO of Northmore, and asked about what her daughter did there because she did not talk about her work. Jack explains that most of what they do there is classified, almost everything they do. Northmore leases a research and development facility from the U.S. government. Bennett claims the firm is working on clean nuclear energy, but refuses to go into detail. He inquires rudely about Craven's feelings after Emma's death. While burning some Emma's belongings in his yard, Jedburgh, a consultant, tasked with stopping him from uncovering Emma's secrets, approached Thomas. Jedburgh shows the photos of 3 activists that drowned in the Connecticut River when they were making their escape after breaking into a U.S. classified nuclear research facility. Thomas explains that her daughter was not an activist. Jedburgh takes a liking to Craven, leaving him to investigate. David just arrives home after buying some beers and was surprised to see Thomas in his apartment. Thomas asked David on what he knows about Nightflower. David refuses to talk because he might lose his job no matter who is dead. Thomas learns that Emma had uncovered Northmore's illegal manufacture of nuclear weapons, designed to be traced to foreign countries in the event of a dirty bomb attack. Emma was poisoned with thallium, hidden in a carton of organic milk, after a failed break-in by activists. While drinking wine, Jedburgh is having a conversation with Thomas. Thomas tells Jedburgh that public drinking is illegal in Massachusetts. Thomas explains that her daughter was irradiated in Northmore and later was killed. Thomas asked Jedburgh what he knows about that. Jedburgh explains that cases like this are never solved. Before leaving, Thomas thanked Jedburgh for not killing him. Some reporters approached Thomas and asked him how he feels about a suspect being identified. Thomas asked their business card and told them that he will call. Thomas approaches Sanderman, a lawyer, and says that he wants to see Senator Pine. After examining Emma's fridge with the Geiger counter, Craven discovers that her milk is radioactive. Thomas encounters several Northmore mercenaries and, through Emma's activist contact, uncovers that Jack Bennett, head of Northmore, ordered the murder of Emma and the activists she was working with, whose bodies were the ones found in the river. After Northmore personnel eliminate a hitman framed for killing Emma's boyfriend and attempt to murder another activist, Thomas confronts Senator Pine involved in the cover-up, revealing that Thomas knows almost everything that happened. Bennett, fearing exposure, has Thomas poisoned with the same thallium that killed Emma. 2 men were arrested in Boston after their car collided in the rear side of an unmarked police car driven by Thomas. Upon their arrest, they were found armed with automatic weapons. Thomas Craven repeatedly has visions of Emma's past, including short conversations, typically as the happy young child he remembers and loves. Bill visits Thomas at his house. While having a conversation, Thomas vomits. He is abducted by Northmore agents, and wakes up handcuffed to a gurney in the Northmore facility, but manages to escape. He steals a car and goes home. Despite his deteriorating health, Thomas confronts Bennett at his home, killing the mercenaries, including the man who shot his daughter. In a final confrontation, Bennett shoots Thomas, but Thomas forces him to ingest the radioactive milk. As Bennett struggles to take pills to counteract the radiation, Thomas drags himself over and shoots Bennett through the throat, killing him. Severely weakened by his wounds and the poisoning, Thomas is hospitalized. Meanwhile, Jedburgh meets with the senator and 2 political advisors who had brought him on board to deal with Craven. Their goal is to spin the Northmore incident in a more favorable way. Jedburgh proposes framing the situation as an assassination attempt on the senator, which could divert attention away from Bennett's death and prevent it from making headlines. The group approves of the suggestion, but things take a shocking turn when Jedburgh suddenly kills both advisors and the senator without warning. Shortly after, a nervous young police officer enters the room. Holding the officer at gunpoint, Jedburgh calmly asks if he has a family and children. When the officer responds that he does, Jedburgh lowers his weapon, allowing the officer to shoot him dead. As Thomas lies dying in the hospital, Emma appears at his bedside and whispers to him. Across town, a journalist opens a letter from Thomas containing DVDs exposing the Northmore conspiracy, ensuring the company's downfall. In his final moments, Emma comforts Thomas, and together, they walk into a bright white light. Movie commentary. Edge of Darkness, 2010, is a gritty and intense crime-action thriller drama that masterfully weaves together a story of personal loss, conspiracy, and revenge. Mel Gibson, in his return to the big screen after a long hiatus, plays Thomas Craven, a Boston detective whose world is shattered when his daughter, Emma Craven, Bojana Novakovic, is murdered right in front of him. What seems like a random act of violence quickly spirals into a labyrinth of dark secrets and corporate corruption. Mel Gibson brings a raw, visceral energy to the role of Thomas Craven, a father not only grieving but driven by an unstoppable desire to uncover the truth. His performance carries the film, pulling viewers into his emotional journey, one marked by moments of vulnerability as well as explosive action. The intensity of his character is perfectly matched by the story's pacing, as each clue Thomas Craven uncovers takes him deeper into the murky waters of government cover-ups and corporate greed. One of the standout elements of the film is Ray Winstone's portrayal of Jedburgh, a mysterious government fixer with ambiguous motives. Jedburgh's interactions with Craven are layered with tension and intrigue, giving the film a morally complex edge. Their conversations feel like a mental chess game, with Jedburgh embodying the shadowy forces pulling the strings behind the scenes. Winstone's quiet menace contrasts well with Gibson's simmering rage, making their dynamic one of the highlights of the movie. The film's central plot revolves around Northmore, a corporation involved in illegal nuclear weapons manufacturing, and the deeper conspiracy behind Emma's murder. Director Martin Campbell, who previously helmed Casino Royale, keeps the tension high and the action sequences sharp. The film doesn't just rely on shootouts or car chases. It builds its suspense through paranoia and psychological warfare, as Craven confronts not just the killers but the powerful, untouchable figures protecting them. What makes Edge of Darkness, 2010, so compelling is how it balances the personal with the political. Craven's search for justice isn't just about righting a wrong. It's about a father coming to terms with the life his daughter led, one he didn't fully understand. The emotional depth adds a layer of gravitas to the action, making each revelation feel like a gut punch. The film's conclusion, particularly the final moments with Jedburgh, is a powerful statement on moral ambiguity. Jedburgh's last actions raise questions about loyalty, duty, and the costs of the truth. As the film wraps up, it leaves the audience reflecting on the consequences of uncovering secrets and how far one would go for justice. Edge of Darkness, 2010, may not reinvent the conspiracy thriller genre, but its strong performances, tightly woven plot, and emotional resonance make it a gripping ride from start to finish. For fans of dark, intense thrillers, this movie is well worth the watch.